aced my sociology A-level exams from Cambridge after studying for barely 2 weeks because I used effective learning methods that allowed me to memorize a large amount of information in a short amount of time. And in this video, I'll be sharing 3 different methods that you can use to memorize sociology exam material specifically so that you can ace your sociology exam in no time. Now, if you aren't studying sociology, this video will still be useful for you because the memory techniques that I'll be sharing can be used and applied to any different subject. If you're new here, I'm Emma Alam, the world memory champion, world speed reading champion, world mind mapping champion in the junior category, as well as holder of 2 Guinness World Records. And here on YouTube, I share quick and effective tips on memory, speed reading, learning, and much more. And so if you found this video useful, then don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. When we're writing an essay for sociology, there's not one perspective we have to consider. There's a lot of different perspectives from which we have to write from. So to remember those perspectives, I used a memory device called Acrostics. Now, for example, in the field of education, we're not only going to be considering the perspective of functionalists, we also have to be considering Marxists and feminists. So we're going to use an acrostic for this. So the main perspectives in sociology are functionalists, Marxists, feminists, postmodernists, and interactionalists. Now that gives us 5 different letters: M, F, P, and I. Now we're going to create a sentence where each word starts with each of these letters. An example sentence that we can create is, "My foot feels pencils inside." It sounds silly, right? But that's basically the point. It has to sound silly so that we remember it. Now imagine this sentence with all of your senses. Imagine you are barefoot and you're standing on top of sharpened pencils. Now the pointiness of the pencils are almost entering your foot. That hurts, right? Now when you're in your sociology paper and the question says, education is a form of ideological control, and you have to give 2 arguments against this. Now you can just go through the sentence that you just created as an acrostic, and each first letter of each word will remind you of the perspective that you can consider. So let's go one by one. The M in my is going to remind you of Marxists. Now Marxists would agree that school is just a form of ideological control that controls children ideologically, that they're going to become a part of the workforce and then eventually serve the higher class. Right? Then the next letter in our acrostic is F from feet. This will remind you of functionalists. Now, functionalists argue that school is an important part of secondary socialization that allows us to have a coherent and stable society. Then the next letter in our sentence is also an F. It's going to remind you of feminists. Feminists also agree with this statement that school just promotes patriarchy. Now, as you can see, the acrostic will help you recall all the different perspectives that you can consider when you're answering your exam question, allowing you to answer it properly. Now, we've already covered how we can remember all the different perspectives to consider when we're answering a question, but once we know which perspective to cover, then we have to know the different theories in that perspective so that we can write it down in our essay. So for this specific question, we want to write our answer from a functionalist point of view. So here's how you can remember the 3 main functionalists. So these functionalists are Emil Durkheim, who believes that school is a vital part of secondary socialization. Then we've got Talcott Parsons, who thinks that school treats each student based on their ability and treats them fairly. Then we've got Davis and Moore, who believe that school provides students with a sense of competition, which pushes them to work harder. Now let's create a mind map which uses the power of images, colors, and connections to help us memorize large amounts of information in a short amount of time. So here you can see I've got my central image for sociology, and from here I'm going to take out a main branch for my functionalists. Now I'm going to place the names of my 3 functionalists on the following sub-branches and then take the main idea of each person's theory. So just taking the main idea, just taking one keyword for their theory will trigger my memory to remember the rest of it without having to write all of it down. So I'm going to write the main idea of their theory on the following sub-branches. Now, mind maps are one of the most powerful tools that I've come across to manage large amounts of information in the most effective way. Now, mind maps themselves are a memory tool, but to give you another option of a technique that you can use alternatively or together are memory techniques called linking. Now, let's use these techniques to memorize the functional list that we just put on our mind map. So we're just going to convert the keywords from our mind map into images and then create a short story to link them together. Now, we use images and stories because this is the kind of information that our brain remembers with the most ease. So we're going to convert these into sound-like images. So Emil becomes a meal because it sounds alike. Durkheim becomes a truck. Socialization becomes a group of people. Talcott becomes a tall cot. Parsons becomes a person. Then fair becomes equal sign. Then we've got Davis, which will become a DVD. Moore will become the moon. And competition will become a race. Now let's create a short story and imagine this story with all 5 of your senses, right? Immerse yourself into the story. Close your eyes and just imagine the scenes as I'm explaining it to you. Imagine yourself having a warm, delicious meal and you're just immersed in that meal. You're eating and eating when suddenly a truck runs past you, spilling all of your food onto you. You're upset because that was so rude. So you look up and see who was driving the truck. It was a group of people who were driving the truck. So you angrily get up and start chasing the truck when the truck suddenly goes into a tall cot. It's huge. So you climb the cot and you peek over expecting to see a baby, but instead you see a person eating an equal sign. You're still pretty hungry, so you snatch that equal sign out of the person's hand and run away. Now, midway through your run, you bump into a DVD. And that DVD, from the force of you bumping, it shoots up into the sky and turns into the moon. You're confused, so you look up and you see there's a race happening on the moon. Now, try recalling the story. What were you doing? You were eating a meal. And what ran past you when you were eating the meal? A truck. And who was driving the truck? It was a group of people. Now go in the comments and try to recall as many images as you can remember. Most of you will be able to remember all of the images because we created a story, which are very natural for your brain to remember. Now when you replay the story, you will see that each image is reminding you of your functionalist. So your meal that you were having will remind you of Emil, and the truck that ran past you will remind you of Durkheim, and so on. Now with this story, you're able to effectively answer the question, education is a form of ideological control, and you have to give 2 arguments against this. You can effectively give 2 arguments against it because you now know 3 main functionalists which you can use to answer the question. So I hope that these tips will help you ace your sociology exam with fun and with ease. And if you are in any other subject, then these techniques will work just as fine for you to memorize your exam material as well. And if you are interested in learning mind mapping or the memory techniques that I explained in this video, then you can check out my coach Sania Alam's online mind mapping and memory skills course, in which you will learn the skill of mind mapping and memory, which you can then apply to any subject and any field in your professional life as well. And I will link these courses in the description box below. These are online, so you can take them from the comfort of your home, and you have 6 months full access, so you can repeat the courses and look at the course material as many times as you'd like. And if you liked this video and would like to know how to read faster, then you can look at this video right here, in which I share 3 speed reading techniques that have allowed me to triple my reading speed almost instantly. And I'm sure they will for you too. And until next week, be happy and be joyful.